Amen.
I once was lost in sin, but Jesus took me in, and then a little light from heaven filled my soul. It made my heart in love and wrote my name above, and just a little talk with Jesus made me whole. Let's have a little talk with Jesus. Let us tell all about our trouble. We will hear our grievous cry. We will answer by and by. When you feel a little prayer returning, and you know a little fire is burning, find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. That's alright. Sometimes my path seems dreary without a ray of cheer, and in the darkness like the light of day. My missing may rise and hide the starry sky, but just a little talk with Jesus clears the way. Now let us have a little talk with Jesus. Let us tell him all about our trouble. We will hear our greatest cry. We will answer by and by. Now when you feel a little prayer was turning, and you know little fire is burning, find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. I may have doubts and fears, my eyes be filled with tears, but Jesus is a friend who watches day and night. I go to him in prayer, he knows my every care, and just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. That's alright. Let's have a little talk with Jesus. Let's tell him all about our trouble. We will hear our greatest cry. Answer by and by. If we little prayer was turning, and you know little fire is burning, find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. That's it, alright. Alright, alright, alright. And just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Alright, 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 alright. Just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Sending on down, sending on down. Lord, let the Holy Ghost come on down. Send it on down, send it on down. Lord, let the Holy Ghost come on down. Lord, we're your children, and we are asking for you to send the fire. Our hearts are hungry, our spirits are thirsty. We need to feel your power, just like the prophet said it would be. In the last days, yes, already see. Yes, we are waiting, we're anticipating. Lord, won't you send the Holy Ghost down? working out in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be servants, Lord Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily, His praise us to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder working power in the blood. Yes, in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. There's power, power, wonder working power in the blood. Yes, in the blood of the Lamb. Power, wonder working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Look what the Lord has done. Look what the Lord has done. He healed my body. He's touched my mind. He saved me just in time. And I'm gonna praise His name. Each day is just the same. Come on and praise Him. Look what the Lord has done. There's power. There is power, power, wonder working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Look what the Lord has done. Look what the Lord has done. Yeah, He healed my body and He's touched my mind. He saved me just in time. Yeah, I'm gonna praise His name. Each day is just the same. Come on and praise Him. Look what the Lord has done. Praise God. He's done so much for us. This time we'll do offering. Brother Don, you want to take up the offering for us? Thank you. And Brother Jim, you want to please peace on the funeral for him? Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. I'll sing glory to your name. Oh Lord, glory to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. I'll sing praises. I'll sing praises to your name. Oh Lord, praises to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. I'll sing praises to your name. Oh Lord, praises to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. I'll sing glory. I'll sing glory to your name. Oh Lord, glory to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. I sing glory to your name. Oh Lord, glory to your name. Oh Lord, for your name is great and greatly to be praised. Show me your way, that I may walk with you. Show me your ways. I put my hope in you. The cry of my heart is to love you more, to live with the touch of your hand, stronger each day. Show me your way. Show me your ways, that I may walk with you. Show me your ways. I put my hope in you. The cry of my heart is to love you more, to live with the touch of your hand, stronger each day. Show me your way, stronger each day, and I'm stronger each day. Show me your way. I need now under your wings. Cover oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. Find rest, my soul, in Christ alone. Know His path in quietness and trust. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. My knees now. Hide me now under your wings. Cover me within your mighty hand. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the floods. I will be still and know you are God. And when the oceans rise and wonders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. I will be still. And I will be still and know you are God. You are God. We praise you. At this time, Brother Gil will come and minister the word of God.
Praise the Lord. I remember when I first found that song, and I loved it. It makes me cry every time when I think about all that He's done in our hearts and our lives. And it's just one of those songs that I just can't hardly put it away. It's not to be buried, it's to be praised and think about what He's done for us in all of our lives. And each of us have been touched in so many ways that are there. You have with you something that I did this week, and you can see your 3-page thing. And basically, whenever you talk about World War I and World War II and things like that, we say that's the end. When you read the book of Isaiah and you see the different places completely destroying, even talking 100 years in advantage, that God had told them that the Babylonians are going to be there. And somewhere or another, this prophet prophesies and also tells about the Medes and the Persians. All things were being revealed in so many ways. So a lot of times whenever you see something up there on the screen, it gives you scriptures, and it's going to tell you basically what that chapter is saying there. And I'm not going to go into it a whole lot of detail, but I think it's some things that we can all get different things on it. The only thing that's really good is when you look down there on Isaiah chapter 17 and verse 13. And it said, the nations rumble on like the rumbling of many waters, but he will rebuke them and they will flee far away. He because or chased his like chaff on the mountains before the wind, or like the whirling dust before a gale. Hey, how about that one? I'm in there. I'm in the Bible, boys. And it's more than just on my title. But whenever I was going into the state, every time you turn on the news and you're listening to what's it going to be like in this state, and all of a sudden we say, and gale warnings throughout the state. And I'd always say, yeah, right. How they know, just because we just got here, But I want you to look at this thing. I want you to see it. And I want to see the valley of the vision that next week. I want to look at it. And I want you to see here that Isaiah, who was a statesman, but he was also a prophet. He's a man that stood up. He's a man that shared the things that were about him. His patriot soul for God and Israel burned and blazed within him as he sought with great zeal the deliverance of his country. In order to understand strong with a fiery speech, it's necessary to realize that the national problems of those times, and it's continuous chapter after chapter that's going on. It's not just one little place anymore. It's all over the world that they knew it at that particular time. And Israel was now beset with a peril all around them. There was formidable foes threatening the nations from every side around them. Disaster was imminent. And Judah's shepherds were now turned from the sheep of the field to the field of the Assyrian war. And after the 10 tribes were destroyed, and now the last two, the 10 tribes have been destroyed. They are totally taken away and forced to be no longer a Jew. And things were happening to them. But there was 2 tribes. Judah was the big one. And it could be that Reuben's in one of it. It could have been Benjamin just above it. I don't know what the other 2 are about. But somewhere in there, it begins to reveal itself in many ways. But there was only one solitary voice that was raising against the popular cry. It's the voice of this man, Isaiah, the prophet. And there's in the defenses were useless, as their military armaments was nothing but a deception. And even in the alliance with the heathens against the heathen, it was merely an act of unbelief when you talk about the things that are going on. But Isaiah had an alternative. If you look on your list and you look at Isaiah 32, it tells you it's a story about the glorious future. And that's, if you got a New American Standard Bible, I have that. And it just tells you that's what it's about. And that's all I did. I just wrote those things down so that it can help us to understand what is happening to us. Because the weakness of the nations was always because of the sin, and there was sin everywhere. The floods had flowed and gone. Everything that ever happened to them has come and come back again. They're wondering, what are we going to do? And as the salvation of the nation was in their repentance, righteousness, not fortification, is their only security. It is a just judgment, not big Babylons or these real strengths and manhood, somehow or another, alliance. The true powers that were beginning to come amongst, they're everywhere. And who knows what's going to happen in their lives. Somehow the people now come to a point that they're seeking for righteousness. They know that the only thing that can help is that God would execute this justice and make all men to come to things the word that their lives were coming. A prophecy 100 years ahead, the Babylonians, these things, says the prophets. The judgments on the day of the Lord is coming one of these days, even yet to come to our time. And somewhere in chapters 17 and 22 here, Babylon fell to the Medes. And all these things are going on and on and on and on again. In fact, whenever the Greeks were come into wars, and they come down through to start off and say, we're going to fight first against Israel. Israel came up and says, don't worry about us. Says, you're going to win. And he showed them where the prophecies that had come. And they looked at it and they saw that God was going to use them. But did he really help him? He just knew what he was going to do. And he was going to do something else in his way. But let's look at this deliverance of Israel now and then. There's a now and there is a then. And it's a time that Isaiah is standing there. And there's a word that they use a lot of times in the Jewish language that they go masah. And what they're doing that, it's a time in their lives in chapter 13 and through 23. It means about a burdens or an utterance of prophecies of God that was coming from Isaiah and coming to them, what God was going to do. Somehow the stones were going to be rolled out before them. The rubbish of the land was in the form of many nations had fallen apart. And when you look at this yesterday, that's the different Jewish holidays like Yom Kippur, it was for a reason. The Day of Atonement, it was for another reason. It's like at one moment that they came together and understand that God was wanting to do these things in their life. And he cleans up this past and the things that are going on. In looking chapter 15 and chapter 16, it speaks about the lamentations over the Moabs. And this is something that's very important for us to understand where they came from and how they came upon. And if you look, you'll find out that Lot goes into a cave, he gets drunk, he turns around, his daughter has a baby, it's the Moabites. And then you see the other ones that are also going to come in there through the other daughter. And these are the things that are all coming. And really, God has been upset at Lot. He's been upset with what all they're doing. But at the same token, God is the kind of God that looks out to us and says, I want you to find the right things. I want you to see what God can do in your hearts and in your life. Suddenly, it looked like Sodom and Gomorrah had fallen upon them in the Dead Sea. It came to a point in Genesis 12 and 1 that God told Abraham to leave his relatives, but no, Abraham takes Lot with him. And all the things began to come down upon them. And Naomi and her husband went to Moab, and that is where they came to a point after another generation had come to a point, and they were going there into this place called Moab, and David sent his parents. And according to chapter 16, verse 6, it says, we have heard of Moab's as an excessive pride of his arrogance and fury. Then it says in chapter 21, it's going back and forth, and I hope you can do this with you and understand that I'm just trying to point it out to you what it is. But there's Dama, Arabia, and Edom. Dama is one of Ishmael's descendants that was born from Hagar, the Sarah's handmaid. Arabia was also of Ishmael's sons, descendants that came from that. Edom is a descendant of Esau, and it's at this time that it came to a point that they understand the mistakes that had come into their lives and what God was trying to do. You know, we got a messed up world today. We really do. There's people that are coming out and say, let's do this. And we stand up and we're going to do this. And we're going to do it again. And all the different things. But really, have we really done anything? Has anything really come to pass? Suddenly, God commands the future. As God's turning to the backs of the Assyrians. When you look at chapter 14 and when you look at chapter 17 there, you see in verse 14 that he said in verse 25, I will crush the Assyrians in my hand. This is God. Of my mountains, I will tremble him down. Over in chapter 17, prophecies upon Damascus, which is up towards the north side of Golden Heights. And if you want to look at that or something that you see on the news and things that are happening to talk about. But it said in the evening, sudden terror, before the morning, they're gone. So what's happening? God has come to the point of this cleaning out of the Egyptians and the Ethiopians in chapters 18 and 19. And all you can see in there is that the thing that stands out, the word is that it flies. Something's going to come against them. They also talked about the time that these wars were the Phoenicians, and we understand them as Tyre or Cyprus or the Nile or Tarshish. These are the places where all of the nations at that time that people would come and train and get the things that they needed to have. And they began to come upon them. It's now that they removed the stone, the vineyard of Israel, the unknown of this thing called Babylon that they're even talking about. What are we going to do? And yet it's going to come to pass in its way. And spiritually, something was happening. And we look at chapter 21, verse 8. Then the lookout called. What's he talking about? What we sang and talked about is the watchtower. And it says, fallen, fallen. Is Babylon. They're not even here hardly. And all the images of her gods are scattered on the ground. So when God talks to us, he does something that your family can't do it. It's not, it's really hard. He can tell them to clean up their past, clean up your future, control the presence that come into your life. Don't you want our lives to be right with God? The time when we come and we understand. Maybe it was a little bit late in light whenever they said in Hebrews 13:8 that the same yesterday and tomorrow, he's the same today. Something that we have to start laughing at what we see on the news, and we wonder what's going to be done. And we're wondering, you can't make that happen. You're not getting it done. Nobody is. It's because we get in these minds of all these mixed things that are there, and yet we're just one of those numbers of a chapter ourselves in the way that God is dealing with what's going on in our lives. He tells us in chapter 22 that he's going to clean up the clutters by those in Jerusalem. In verses 15 through 25, it talks about the custodian of a royal possession. There's a man named Shebna and Eliakim, my servant. And next week, you're going to find out that Ahaz is killed in this chapter. But I'll talk to you about that next time. It comes to a point that we see that removes those stones, the vineyards, the things that are there. Wondering, do we understand that understanding who is Pekah and who's Rezin? Who are these people? Who alone is Israel, less Syria? Who are these people that are going on? Then Israel comes to a point, he looks and he sees these dual-fold things beginning to happen and all the things that's going on. And even again, when we look at Revelation, it talks about Babylon again. And different things begin to reveal itself in so many different types of way. When you look at chapter 24 and 27, it speaks of time of total destruction of the earth. And when you read it, you can put it in place, the history that repeats itself on and on and on again. But what is God trying to do? The next thing is this: he wants to have restoration of Israel, a way of peace. And he talks about these lords of vineyards. It comes to that point, what's going on? But at the same time, when you talk about all this things that are happening, he's still coming that he is peace. God, why are you telling us by a prophet these things? At the same time, he is peace. What are we going to do with it? In chapter 26, he said, the day this song will be sung, What is the song about? It tells me in my NASB, it tells me right on it is a song of trust in the land of Judea. And it talks about his good protection. And that's the words they use, and they're putting the little tops on it. That we have a strong city. God will appoint salvation walls and bulwarks. Open the gates that the righteous nations, which keeps the truth, may enter in. You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. Now, if our politicians do that, what would we think? If Jesus was saying it, what would you think? See, the thing that is it really this is, it doesn't matter